my close friends that I liked being around weren't the people that would stay in contact. It was the people that made the bad decisions like I was making. And I realized, looking at the way that some of their lives were going, I didn't want to end up that way. Um, it sounds like a quick, change of mindset, but it wasn't. It took time. And I think for those that have supportive people around them, use them, reach out to them. If they really are people that care about you, they will care about you and your problems and not judge you, but help you. And it's a quick way to find your close friends.
Welcome to the show. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your continued support. We've got a good one for you today. Bobby Bourguignon is here, and he's going to dig into future focus, comparing yourself not to where you are now, but to where you want to be, becoming the master of something. And we're going to dive deep into his personal life and talk about how he regained control of his life. Everybody's got to struggle at some point in time, and Bobby was brave enough to share his with us. Thank you so much, Bobby. Thank you for listening. Welcome to the show, and welcome to the Edge of Excellence. Well, Bobby, thank you so much for making time and getting away from saving the world with your analyst and engineering job and coming on and sharing your wisdom with all of our audience. Welcome to the show.
Absolutely. Thanks, Matt. Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, we didn't spend any time talking before we started recording to say hi. Thanks for coming on. I haven't seen you for a while. You look the exact same. It's nice to see you again. We're going to start off the way we always start off. And what I need from you is, what is your definition of excellence?
Matt, I'm going to make it easy for you. I've got it boiled down to 3 words. Excellence is sustainable, continuous improvement. To go into it a little bit more, I think it's not so much about the journey as like a lot of people say, or even the end goal, but I think it's about a mindset that you adopt. Think about like people that you've talked to that have been excellent, really good at what they do. You don't necessarily know it right away, but you know it by talking to them, not because you know about what they've done in their past, the milestones that they've achieved, but the way that they talk about the things that they have learned and bake that into their mindset going forward. I think that's what makes a person excellent.
Because
Constant,
you can tell they're gonna be excellent based on their mindset, and they're not there yet, or you can just tell that they're already excellent at whatever they're talking about based on the language they're using and the lessons they're teaching.
I think excellence is the mindset. I think that because they've learned to always become better and find ways to be sustainable in doing so, that's what makes them excellent.
Ah, so it's how you do one thing is how you do everything. And if you have that mindset, you're going to be excellent generally, and then probably in specific things.
Absolutely. It depends on where you point and shoot. So I like take this for example, like a lot of people at the end of the year, they want to go to the gym, they want to get better at something. They decide, okay, you know what? I'm going to go to the gym today. I'm going to spend 4 hours. This is going to be my new habit. I'm going to be really good. I'm going to build a great body. And then they do that for a week and then they stop. It's not sustainable. They have these big goals. They jump right into them and they don't stick to them. And I think if you can figure out how to do that sustainably, wake up every day, build those strong habits. That's a mindset that develops and that it can be applied to anything that you decide to achieve, whatever goals those may be.
Yeah, it's interesting because I spent a lot of time with a lot of excellent people, and everybody's got their morning routine and their evening routine, and we talk about it all the time. And they wake up and they do their meditation, they're stretching, they eat whatever they're going to eat, they read their goal sheet, then they go through their day kicking butt. And at the end of the day, they have their wind down, and they're like, the way they get up and the way they finish the day is excellent. And I think it is a mindset. I haven't heard that. I've heard continuous improvement before, but that mindset focus is interesting. So we'll dig into that during the call, and we're going to dig into being a UW Badger, and we're going to dig into Discovery Financial Services and what it means to be a cybersecurity analyst and engineer. And we're going to talk about SC Johnson and your tech internship there. And we might even get into traveling the world and learning languages, and definitely get into failed startups. But before we get into where you are now and what's happened in recent history and the failed startups, I'm really interested in, because a lot of our audience wants to be entrepreneurs, and it's always interesting to hear maybe what people miss. It's good to hear about the successes. Those are easier to find. Excuse me. The failures are less talked about, but maybe most lessons are in there. So we're going to get into all that. But before we do, I just like to know what life was like for you in high school. What were you doing? It's hard to get into UW. And I know people that are from Wisconsin and go to UW don't think it's that as hard as everybody else thinks, but it's a difficult school to get into, a difficult school to excel at. It's a huge school. So there's a lot of people coming out there that maybe aren't kicking butt as much as you are. What were you doing in high school? What was life like? Where'd you see yourself that kind of led to UW and led to SC Johnson and then Discovery Financial Services?
Yeah. So in high school, I was a good student. I didn't really take school too seriously, but I didn't really feel like I had to. I, kind of glided through some of the classes, ended up with the 4.0. So I had a lot of time to spend on extracurriculars. Um, but I made a lot of bad decisions too. So we can get into that. But I think I did spend a lot of time doing extracurriculars. I was really involved. I remember as a freshman coming in my first month, there's an announcement, saying, "Oh, hey, if you're interested in doing a foreign exchange, come to the office." And school of what 1,200 kids, 3 people showed up, and I was the only one that actually wanted to do it. So that gave me the opportunity to do that my junior year, which was great. Spent a lot of time doing sports like baseball and tennis, and spending time with friends. But time with friends can be good, but also made a lot of bad decisions doing that. Got into some things I probably shouldn't have done, which ultimately costed me a big internship outside of school, outside of high school. But I think overall, I didn't really feel the need to focus on standing out so much because that wasn't my goal. I just kind of did the things I wanted to do and decided to see where that would take me.
So you did what you wanted to do, but it made you stand out. So maybe it's that mindset you were talking about before.
Yeah, I think it's not really comparing myself to the people that I was around, but kind of like where I wanted to be in the future. I know I wanted to go to a good school. Um, and so I'm like, well, what will make me stand out in that way in terms of the application process, but not so much like, oh, I got to be doing something different than my friends, or it's just, I liked traveling, I liked school, I liked computers, so those are kind of the things I focused on. Sports. Yeah.
So future focused, comparing to where you wanted to be, not where you were, comparing to peers of your future, not peers right now, but not doing that in a way to figure out what steps to take. You're just envisioning the long-term goal and the steps just kind of came in naturally and worked out.
Yeah, I think I was good at seeing potential opportunities as opportunities and not potential failures. Um, for better or for worse, I think a lot of them did turn out in ways I didn't expect. But for example, joining tennis, I did that 2 years into high school. I hadn't played tennis before. I got to be pretty decent at it. It was like something that I thought would be fun. So I decided to do it because I wanted to and try everything once. Kind of the idea of jack of all trades, master of none, especially early on, just to kind of see what I was interested in.
And you
Um,
glided through to a 4.0 without having to work that hard.
Honestly, a little bit, yeah. I think I took some college level courses with which bump up your GPA, so it's not like I had straight A's throughout everything. I did struggle in some classes, but yeah, did end up with a 4.0. But I think that mentality of, oh, I don't have to try so hard in school definitely carried over to college in a school where I did have to try much harder. And that kind of backfired, bit me in the butt.
Okay, we'll get into college, but so far glided to 3.0, didn't really try, everything worked out. You're not speaking to most of the audience that had to struggle and figure things out and lay
But we'll
plans.
get there.
So we're going to take a little pause. What can you tell us that were the bad decisions that won't get you in trouble? Because I'd love to hear some bad decisions. I think anybody listening right now might go from 1.5 speed to 1 speed just to hear some of the bad decisions.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
were you stealing cars like I was? Were you taking dynamite and blowing up cars like I was? Were you just a total dirtbag in the city and everybody knew it and told your father-in-law until you were 54 years old that they can't believe that you married his daughter? That sort of stuff.
Not too far off, actually. I did grow up in the country, so I did blow up some stuff, but usually got away with it because weren't in a city,
Yeah.
so it was okay. But no, I got into some substance abuse definitely in high school. More than one, and ultimately it costed me a pretty big internship out of school with security clearance. I mean, I worked hard in school. Didn't like I said, didn't try too hard, but like when I applied myself, I did well. So that gave me the opportunity to get a conditional offer with the DoD and pretty popular three-letter acronym agency there, and they're like, "Great, you've got the job. We're just going to fly you in. We're going to do a behavioral test, and we're going to hook you up to a lie detector." And I'm like, "Oh shit! Oh shoot! I lied about a lot of the stuff that I had been doing in high school. I'm
Wow.
like, oh no, I've never drank, never taken these things, and that ended up costing me a security clearance, a big step in the direction I wanted to go in life, and it made me reevaluate a lot of my choices. Um,
Wow, that's a tough lesson, and I appreciate you sharing that. And if you're listening right now, especially if you're related to me and you're my offspring, first, some of those choices do come back and bite you, and people don't think about that. So if you're in high school right now, or you haven't done some of those things, maybe think about it before you do. I appreciate you sharing that with us. But it ended up okay in the end. You didn't go that direction. That happens to a lot of people. You're going down this one way, and maybe it's not the right thing for you. Maybe there's something that throws you off. Maybe you just get fired from whatever the job is. Like I got fired many times, and then you take a different avenue. And if you have that mindset of excellence, and if you're continuously improving in a sustainable model, then you'll find a new path and do excellent at that, which is what happened to you. And you ended up in the capital of cheese curds. Crappy football team this year, usually a great football team. The number one city in America, I think, last year to live in, Madison, Wisconsin, and went to that really fun, awesome school after college. What was going on there for you to help you get ahead later?
yeah, did a lot of stuff in school. Watched some football. Not a big football fan, but it was great going to the games. I got involved similar to high school. I kind of wanted to try everything. Jack of all trades, master of none. I joined a bunch of student orgs, ended up leading a couple of them, and had some internships. College works. I remember Jack came into one of my classes, handed out some sheets, and I signed up for it. And I loved all the hate my friends were giving about it. They're like, "Oh, I've heard horrible things about college works. It's all these things." And
They don't
uh,
tell you how hard you have to work.
yeah, nobody could back it up either. It's all people that had heard from their second cousin removed, twice removed. Their friend's roommate.
Yeah.
They hadn't gone through it, so I'm like, okay, now I'm really interested. What is this actually about? Like, if anything, to break it down and find why it is so horrible. So I'm gonna be honest, I went into the interview for it
you
thinking
came
like,
you came to the great, for 32 years I've devoted my life to that company, and I love it. Everybody I know loves that company. Like all my friends, all the billionaires and sports teams owners, I just want to hire all these people. They think it's the greatest thing on earth. And you're right. Nowadays, there's Reddit, which I hate Reddit. There's some
yeah,
guy in Madison, Wisconsin, that didn't even work for our company. He worked for some other company as a painter, and he's bitching about our company. It's so funny. And
yep.
my kids are like, yeah, Reddit's just a bunch of trolls, but the trolls have a little bit of power. So your attitude was, if they're all saying these bad things, I want to go figure out why it's so bad.
Oh yeah, it's like, oh, you hear all these horrible things happening. Let's figure out the reason. I probably saw that Reddit post, and that was probably the first thing that tipped me off. And I'm like, okay, let's see what it's about. And I talked to Jack. I learned more about it. I learned about his success with it. Um, Told me right off the bat it's going to be the hardest year of my life, hardest summer of my life.
They
And
never tell you how hard it is.
oh well, it was probably the hardest thing I've done in terms of an internship or a job. Definitely physically, mentally stressful.
At the
But
time.
at the time, yeah. I had several other jobs before that. I think, you know, throughout my life, lived a lot of places, had a lot of jobs, never stuck with a lot of things. And this was one of those things that I saw beginning to end and really saw the growth of myself. So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't usually go off on this tangent, and half the people, more than half the people that are guests, never worked at college works. We're just kind of picking people's brains, but that is a pretty funny way to look at it. And it is interesting to hear kind of some of those complaints that always come from people that didn't work here, or they worked here for like 2 weeks. But it's the real deal, right? It's real adult, real responsibility, real pressure, real lack of knowledge that you have to figure out. I'm just hired my son as assistant brand manager for College Works. Actually, he's going to work for 1 year before he goes into interior design. And I'm like, look, you're not going to be prepared. You're not going to know what you're doing. And you can't come to me. You got to go figure it out. And that's the real world. So that's why we make sure you've worked 3 years or more. You played varsity sports. You got above a 3.0. And there's these metrics that we've come up with by doing a lot of studies that you have the work ethic and the drive and you can stick it out. But it's the real world. It's everybody's first time in the real world. Is it the hardest thing I've ever done? No. Did it feel like the hardest thing I've ever done? Yes, because it's that continuous improvement. The sustainability is the shell you get, the protection you get from trying and failing. And oh my God, I worked 70 hours a week. I didn't know I could do that. Guess I can do that. Oh my God, I can convince people that are 3 times my age to do things. Didn't know I could do that. It was really hard. And then you just get this inoculation to future pain that makes, I'm sure your other jobs are actually harder than College Works, but they don't feel it because you already went through it. But I like your attitude. If you're listening right now, please have this attitude where you chase down the truth instead of buy into the trolls. So you wanted to come figure out why it was so bad. And did you do it as a freshman?
Yeah, I think I was a freshman. Yeah.
You did 1 year, right?
1 year. Yep.
And I think we tried to get you to do more than 1 year.
You did. I ended up deciding to go a different route. Yeah.
I think I talked to you myself to try to get you to do more than 1 year.
Could have been the case. Yeah. Maybe. I definitely remember seeing you in the trip to Canada. I think in Windsor, you might have been there. So
Yeah, might have sat down with you and knew that you were going to SC Johnson or doing something else. And that's what College Works is. It's a stepping stone organization. You come in, you do your thing, and then you go do something else. I prefer if people stay for that DM year because I think the DM year is better. Not everybody qualifies. I think you did, though, and you Heisman me and went off to SC Johnson, but it worked out okay. So you're in college as a freshman. You do one of the toughest internships that you can do that we never tell you how tough it is. One of the highest paying, but we never tell you that you're going to have to earn the money, or so they say. And you use that internship to open other doors. And I believe the next step you went to was SC Johnson as a tech intern, right?
yeah, yeah. So I was, involved throughout the school year through a bunch of different student organizations related in the tech space, which also gave me a foot into my SC Johnson internship, where I did some kind of generic development work. I'm going to be honest, this was the start of COVID, I believe. So I don't think, after College Works, I had not had an in-person internship. It was all online and virtual in the first year it was happening. This was actually probably one of the lowest points of my life, to be honest. I had come off this great experience with College Works, and all my friends were gone. All my roommates left. I was living alone in my crappy apartment where the exterminators coming all the time, bugs crawling all around, holes in the wall. It was a really cheap place, and I got back into the substances again. I struggled a lot. Life's a roller coaster. It's not a straight shot. You learn your lesson and you go. There's a lot of lessons to learn in life, and this is one that I had to sit down and really learn a couple times. I struggled a lot for a good chunk of that year, actually. I did what I had to do for that internship. I learned, but I didn't feel good about myself or the choices I was making in life. I think I spread myself too thin along with working on this internship. I did a lot with student organizations. I joined the ski team. I was leading I was part of an organization called Coding for Good, where we worked with different nonprofits to do different coding projects, and then also started working at another student organization. And I definitely spread myself too thin. It wasn't sustainable, and it wasn't something where I felt going forward. Yes, these were all great lessons to learn, but it's not something where I felt like I was providing enough value in building for the places I was working for and for my own life to build myself to be better. And I knew something had to change. So got through that year and things changed. I decided to rely on my friends, rely on my family, go home more often, focus on the things that I cared about that mattered, and continue from there.
So you must have been an intern and a freshman in summer of 2019, and then a sophomore in the summer of 2020 when you had this virtual. And so you're saying you're living in Madison, Wisconsin in your apartment, during the virtual school days. Everybody else went back home and did their virtual school days from home, and you're stranded by
Hmm.
yourself, and lonely, and maybe the depression stuff kicks in. So you turn to
Absolutely.
different substance abuse. And we'll just take a pause. I don't know if you know my wife's recovering. She says she's not a recovering alcoholic. She's an alcoholic that doesn't drink anymore and has been sober for a long time. She's also fought depression. My daughter's fought depression. What did you do? Because there's people listening right now that know that they may have a substance issue. And I really appreciate you going to this, because this might be the most valuable part of the whole talk for people. And if we touch one or two people, we're winning. What did you do to, one, realize, hey, this is a problem, instead of continuing down that train? And then two, the hardest, I think realization's 80% of the fight. And then the other 20% is stopping. What did you do to realize, and what helped you to stop and change your life a little bit? Get more control of your
Well,
life, we'll say.
Well, I'll tell you what I didn't do first, and that was I didn't reach out. I stayed by myself. I didn't talk to anybody. That didn't help. I, woke up, was in bed most of the day when I could be. I was still doing a lot of things, but it was all virtual. So I, just had my laptop, just kind of going through the motions, and it just kind of kept building and festering and getting worse and worse until I realized even the people that I did like that I wanted to reach out to didn't want to talk to me. Um, my close friends that I liked being around weren't the people that would stay in contact. It was the people that made the bad decisions like I was making. And I realized, looking at the way that some of their lives were going, I didn't want to end up that way. Um, it sounds like a quick, change of mindset, but it wasn't. It took time. And I think for those that have supportive people around them, use them, reach out to them. If they really are people that care about you, they will care about you and your problems and not judge you, but help you. And it's a quick way to find your close friends. Um, it took time. Like I said, it took the better part of a year, but made it through. Mhm.
That's quick. Usually
Yeah,
it takes the better part of a decade.
absolutely, absolutely. And I do attribute some of this to some of the lessons that I learned in high school too. That built up resentment for the ways I'd acted in the past, or not gotten that internship, for example, because of decisions I had made. So it's like all of these little things built up, and I think saved me in the end. Yeah.
So if someone's listening to this right now and maybe they're worried about themselves, um, you you had to kind of think about, why are you isolated? Why are these friends not wanting to hang out with me? Why do I want to stay in bed all the time? And there's oftentimes alcoholism or drug addiction and depression. It's kind of the same little devil inside your body telling you, no, it always tells you to do the wrong thing. Stay in bed. Don't talk to your friends. Don't go to that party. Don't talk to your parents. It's like it wants to survive. So it's fighting with you. What would you tell someone that hasn't figured out, maybe I got a problem, and hasn't reached out? What could you say to get them to go, shit, maybe I have a problem, I need to reach out to somebody?
Yeah. Well, a lot of times you don't even realize it because you forget what life used to be like or what it could be like if you've never experienced a better life than the one that you're experiencing now. So for me, it was just sticking to basics, like making sure I woke up, ate food, drank water, went to the gym. If I did those things, I noticed like 50% difference in the way that I was feeling. The hard part was I wasn't consistent with it. So it was building those small habits step by step that really helped me, and it showed me what could be that I kind of forgot about. Um, so just start with the little things. Wake up, drink some water. See how you're feeling. Um, not relying on that idea of self pity, but rather self worth and what you could be. Don't lose sight of that.
What are the little things that make me healthy? What are the basics of health? I'm going to try to do those and give myself some little wins. I'm going to
Yeah.
forgive myself if I miss a few days. I'm going to forgive myself if I relapse a little bit and get back on it one day at a time. And then once you get the basics of health down, maybe your mind settles in, and then you're able to, or courageous enough to reach out and maybe get that rejection from those bad friends that really aren't good friends. And I do know this too, if you're listening right now, it usually requires getting different friends. Usually you have to switch friend groups, you have to chase down the health, and um, eventually you get to the point where you realize, okay, this is really important for my life. And eventually you get to the point where you realize, okay, I need other people to help me. Prior to that, you're saying, try to get these little wins, these basic steps to get yourself in the right mindset. that continuous improvement mindset you're talking about to be able to go to the next step and move on from that.
Yeah, absolutely. It was all about building momentum, just like you're talking about. Those little wins build up.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you know this, but now we've hired a woman on staff that we have a psychologist on staff now. So people can, they used to always reach out to me and, it became too much. And I've got a lot of experience, but I'm not professionally trained. So one of the things I'm most proud of is that all of us pitched in, all of the VPs, because everybody's paid on profit. And we spent some of our money hiring that lady. So people have access to her. And it's really, really paid off because she knows more what she's doing. I mean, Jill's talked to a bunch of people because she's been through depression and addiction. I've had a lot of friends that have gone through this and and I can help out a little bit, but having that woman now, Dr. Dorothy, is just, I think, amazing for our business. I'm just so stoked that we do it. I appreciate you sharing that. And I mean, that again, if you're listening right now and you're suffering with this, you can always reach out to me via email. You can find my email and I'll point you in the right direction. Your parents probably want help. And if you're not quite there yet, it's that basics of health, one day at a time, set yourself up for the little wins. And so you got through it that COVID year and you got through that SC Johnson internship. And then eventually you entered into Discovery Financial Services and you've done quite a few different things with them and moved into cybersecurity. But you mentioned before we started recording that you had a few startups. So you wanted to, before you got into Discovery Financial Services, you wanted to try the entrepreneurial route. And like everybody else, it didn't work out every time you tried it. So can you talk a little bit about some of your failed startups and what you learned from those?
Oh, absolutely. Where do I start? There's, everything stems from a dumb idea you have with a friend, and then you just see where it goes, right? And I think I'm trying to think of some of the crazy ideas that we actually started building out, sites and products for, and one of them was CBD delivery for dogs because my sister at the time had a dog that was going through a lot of ailments, and this was before BarkBox and things like that carried those type of supplements. And I saw it made a huge change, so we went through some of that. Was one of them. Something called Copper Drop, which was a idea a friend had for basically social shopping online. Now these are all end consumer products, so this is the kind of things that we were missing in our lives as like students, me and some of my friends. And so we decided to go ahead and try to create some of those. And then the one that we took a little bit further was called, what we called it Moment. So it was basically jumping on the jumping on like the crypto bandwagon and creating decentralized social media content platforms. So with that one, we did a little bit better. We took runner-up in a hackathon, a Chainlink hackathon, and we I think the founders had very different ideas on what we wanted to do with that. I think some of us found it as a quick way to make money and then just ditch it, and some of us wanted to do it for a longer period of time and do it with friends. So I learned a lot about partnerships and choosing the right people to start your ventures with. Um, and we also went through a accelerator program with that one. So it was locally based out of Madison, called Generator. Did the G Alpha program, which is their introductory one. Got offered in the Step Up, their G Beta program, for their flagship program, and decided not to go that route because we were going to, try to see if we could build it ourselves. But ultimately, that fell through. And I think more than anything, I learned the importance of, as good as it is to be a jack of all trades, master of none, you have to be good at something if you want to run a successful business. You have to have value that you're bringing to the table that other people aren't. And that value has to, and those values that you hold for your business have to be shared by the people that you do it with. And those were some very valuable lessons. It showed me that I don't want to stick to trends. I want to stick to things that I care about and believe in. And do I still want to be an entrepreneur someday? Absolutely. But do I have a lot to learn in the industry that I want to become an entrepreneur in? Absolutely. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm spending time learning more about the industry, learning more about cybersecurity, and going from there.
And that's the way to do it. There's a lot of life lessons that you got really, really quickly in life, which is nice. Well, the one most important is you don't have to live your whole life by the time you're 24 years old. You don't have to decide what you're going to do for the rest of your life. You don't have to work and find the job you're going to do for the rest of your life. You don't have to start the business that you've always wanted to start. And a lot of times it's better waiting. And you can go off and start a business right out of college, um, but you're going to get smoked by people that start at 10 years out of college and have 10 years of experience doing whatever you're about to learn to do. Because college doesn't teach you how to do your job. College teaches you the skills to learn how to do your job when you're out of college. So the other thing that you said is a lesson that I don't hear much in your generation, the Gen Z generation, and it was the millennials too. It's especially the millennials, all about them. What's it going to do for me? Why do you want to work here? Oh, because your company's so great and I've always wanted to work for your company. No, that's not what we want to hear. What value are you going to bring? What skill set do you bring? So my son is another example. He's off looking for another job. We lost our brand manager. My son's a killer designer. He's got a degree in design. He's got a degree in business marketing too. And everything that we were missing in this one guy that we had who actually resigned, Jake, my son, filled in for. So I had the perfect fit because he could bring the value I needed. It wasn't about me giving him value. That's not how I'm thinking as a business person. That's how I think as a dad. I'm thinking the business is an entity. I need to save the entity. Who can do the best job saving the entity and what can they bring? And these last two generations miss that. And especially the millennials get caught up in it's about me. What can you do for me? And it's not, it's a two-way street. And the business wants to hear what you're going to do for them and how you're going to drive value and how you're going to sustain continuous improvement in yourself and grow in their business and sustain continuous improvement in the business. So you had these three different startups and you decided, you know what? I'm not ready for this. I got big things in my future, and they might be at Discovery Financial Services. And you moved into Discovery Financial Services after these failures, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, I did. So I had an internship. Actually, some of this was in the tail end of that last business idea, that last venture. And then stopped it right in the summer, and that's when I started my internship at Discover. So it was hard to get in. They're pretty selective. They had a lot of applicants, but you know what they say. How do you get in? How do you become like the manager of a hedge fund or something? You wake up early, you work hard, you eat really well, you have your morning routine, you have a dad that owns a hedge fund. So it's kind of a similar thing. I use my network. Now, this isn't my dad, but I had a friend that interned there before me. So he was nice enough to refer me. And I think I did really well in the behavioral interviews. I did not do well in the technical interviews, but I showed that I had the interest to learn and that I really, really did want to learn. That I knew that's what I wanted to do with my future career. And I think I expressed that well enough for them to want to take a chance on me. And I'm glad they did. I'm still working there today. So I went from an intern to a full-time employee in a rotational program. And I'm just about finished with the end of that rotational program now after my second year.
And I think people used to say to me, it doesn't matter what you know, it matters who you know. And it's just such a fallacy. It doesn't matter what you know or who you know. It matters what you do with what you know and who you know. And I think it's interesting how you put that hedge fund. You wake up early, you have your morning routine, you work 12 hours a day, you're learning fast, you have the evening routine, and you have a parent that owns a hedge fund. Well, there's another brother or sister that doesn't do all that stuff and doesn't get to run the hedge fund. And there may be the cousin that's running the hedge fund and not the kids because they're not doing the essential hard work, make it happen, deliver value. So you decided at I guess all your jobs, because you did it at CollegeWorks too, to deliver value, and then you move up. So what do you do as a cybersecurity analyst slash engineer? What is that job for people listening that are taking engineering classes at UW or just got out? And it's hard to get a job, by the way. You had a pretty stellar resume. I bet it was, and you mentioned it was still hard to get the job. My son has a stellar resume, made videos for a company that Jay-Z owned part of, worked in the best interior design in Newport Beach, worked with the CEO of Oakley, past president of Nike one-on-one in the clothing industry, and still turned in 100 applications to get a job. It's hard. So if you're thinking about cybersecurity and you're thinking about engineering, you're thinking about analysts, you're going to have to do a lot of stuff to get there, work hard, get all those routines you talked about. And when you get the job, what do you do? So you talked about future focus, where you want to be. What are you doing in that job? What's the day to day like? What skills do you need?
Yeah. So it started out actually, it was more in a data engineering, application engineering role before the cybersecurity one in the last year. So that was about all about making fake data safe and transferring it places fast so people could test their applications, which was really interesting. You learn a lot about automation, you learn a lot about building applications and workflows and moving data quickly and making sure that production data is obfuscated so people can't get sensitive information out. Because not only do you risk your customers and your clients, you also risk intervention with the government entities and auditors. So it's really about protecting end users by allowing people to test their application safely. That was a lot of fun. It's something I had, to be honest, no interest in at the time, but that was my placement because I didn't have enough of a background in cybersecurity to be placed on a cybersecurity team right away. But after that first year, I kind of showed that I had what it took, the aptitude and the willingness to learn in cyber and work towards some certifications that showed that that was the direction I wanted to go, and got brought on by one of the cyber teams. So now, like you said, I'm a cybersecurity engineer with attack surface management area, which is within offensive security. So basically, it's getting a full concept of what Discover has in their network or on all throughout all the company, all devices that are in scope, and determining where potential vulnerabilities or missing controls or misconfigured devices live, and then contacting remediation teams to take care of those. So it's basically from a big scope, trying to find where all the problems are within a company and trying to fix those. It's really fun. It's really interesting. I didn't realize how much sales would be involved. I think a lot of my time from college works helped with that. Just because you want to make an environment safer, and so do the people that you work with, doesn't mean that they want to hear about it.
They're internal sales, selling to the other employees, selling your ideas.
To other teams, to people that even if they work in cybersecurity or have the same goals in mind, they don't think that there's a problem. You need to prove to them that there is. Why do you need your house painted? Because in 10 years, it's going to be a lot more expensive to paint. You might not see it now, but when somebody works closely with it, they can tell. So it's a lot of the similar sales techniques, a lot of technical training and skills are helpful. So having that background in computer science was definitely needed, and working towards some of those certifications, because there's unfortunately a lot of people, I think, in cybersecurity that think of cybersecurity as something that you need to work up to. It's not an introductory role usually, because you need to have that foundational experience in computer science. And while that is the case, there's a lot that you need to learn on the job. Things are constantly changing. It's a cat and mouse game between the good guys and the bad guys. If you're not willing to learn all the time, pick up new technologies and techniques, you're not going to be successful.
So interesting, in the beginning, you tried a few things. You talked about your rotation at Discovery, but you're trying different things, and then your face just lights up. And I think that's the process of figuring out what you want to do first. Maybe not for the rest of your life, but you try different things and figure out which one. You said fun and exciting, which, like, I have a lot of fun and I get really excited working with 20 somethings. And I just I come home and I talk to my wife and kids about how excited I am, and they're rolling their eyes because someone figured it out and their eyes sparkled. So that's how I knew it was for me. You're having fun and excitement figuring out this data stuff, which to me, I didn't even know what the hell you were talking about the whole time you were doing it. But if you're listening right now, that's the process. You try things, you figure out what's fun and exciting, you dive deeper. And you dive deeper. Now, sometimes it's not always fun and exciting. So you don't pull a millennial and just quit and move on and move to Nebraska with no job and no house and hope it works out, because there are bad days and there are bad years. And there are times where it's months of, I don't like this. But if you know that really it is fun and exciting, marriage is the same thing. You have bad years of marriage. Having kids, sometimes they're rough at certain periods of their life. Just living your life. There's times when everything's going great and times when things aren't going great. That's the same in work. So you're trying things, seeing what you think will mostly be fun and exciting. And then you can work hard more easily and add value more easily because you're not going against the grain. And do you ever do one of those DISC tests that we did back in the day at College Works?
I think I did. I don't remember which category it was, but I definitely ranked highest in the, the extroverted kind of. I forget the different. It's the circle with the different quadrants, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I forget how I ranked, but I know I was definitely the one that liked working with people and being outgoing and kind of the more or sanguine side of things. So
You weren't the technical guy.
I wasn't. No, actually, in school, back in high school too, I always did really well in English, in grammar, that kind of stuff. Ranked high in that, and I did way worse in anything math or science. But that's what I loved. Um, and I realized that what I loved and what I'd be more willing to wake up every day and do will far outweigh the benefits than what I'm naturally good at, because that only gets you so far. That gives you a good starting point to work from.
Hmm.
But if I'm not willing to wake up every day and get better at it, I'm not going to progress and get better.
Yeah, you got to be excited to wake up every day and get better at it. You got to know that this bad day, month, year isn't like if I was an accountant, it would be every day was a bad day. Bad. If I was a lawyer, like I'm just not a detail oriented person. Like Sean Phelps had me do some slides. He said, "Your slides look horrible. They're ugly." I'm like, "What's wrong with them?" He said, "Use the brand guidelines." Like I thought I did. Like that's just not who I am. And so I'm constantly fighting against that. You find that thing that you're not fighting against. It's just so easy to get through. Well, not easy, but it's easier to get through the bad times.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So I'm just checking out the time here. This has been very interesting. I really appreciate once again you diving into some of those struggles that you had because I think every show's got its own little gem, but that's the gem for this show for sure. Even more than the process of continuous improvement, even more than the future focus, even more than the trying things out and what exactly do you do for a living. I do want to ask some of my canned questions though. Looking back at your life, this is an interesting one to ask after that preamble. Looking back, what sacrifice, big sacrifice did you make that at the time was a sacrifice, but you look back and it was like the greatest thing you ever did and you can't even believe you questioned it?
Ditching bad friends. That's something I'm not good with. When I have a friend, they usually takes a lot for me to stop becoming or to stop hanging out with those people. But once I did that and started surrounding myself with people that I wanted to be like, I noticed big changes. That
You
was tough to
surrounded
do.
yourself with people you want to be like.
Yeah, absolutely. That's
That's
I
a good
think
way of describing how you should fire your friends and hire new ones.
no, and it's necessary. I mean, it's to be a little trite. You're the average of the five people you spend the most time with, right? I think a lot of people have probably heard that, and I totally believe in it just from the changes I've seen in my own life. I at work, I'm always working with people that are better at me at what I do than I am, and that pushes me to be better every day. And getting that in your personal life too will make you be a better, well-rounded person.
Huh.
So friendship was definitely the big one. I think making better health decisions, that was I think still a regret to this day, but it taught me the importance of maintaining my health and how much that affects my well-being and my mental well-being. Um,
Yeah.
making health, just being healthy, making good habits while you're young and then sticking to those. I'm glad I learned the lessons I did at the age that I was and not later in life.
Yeah.
And it's very important, your health and your friends.
Yeah, it is a blessing. It is a blessing to learn that in your 20s. It is a blessing to grow up and realize I'm not going down the path I want in your early 20s. It is a blessing to realize that the friends do matter, the habits do matter, the routines do matter, the health does matter. Like if I don't go mountain biking for 3 days, I just become just a total asshole. And the exercise for me, like the mountain biking is the meditation, the run, 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 and the trees and the snakes and the lizards and the turkey vultures. I love the turkey vultures. It's like a meditative experience. It's a release. It's a distraction, and it's also physical. If I get fat, and I'm like a yo-yo, I go up and down. When I'm fatter, I'm grumpier. When I'm skinnier, I'm happier. When I don't exercise and I don't get out there, and I know now, so I just have to go. I have to have that routine. And you learn that about yourself. If you can learn that, I mean, it took me till my 40s. I had to go find a hobby exercise because I hate going to the gym. If you learn this stuff in your 20s, and sometimes you have to struggle through some things like you did. And so, there's people listening to the call right now that are struggling through things that just aren't aware that they're struggling through things. And I hope this wakes them up a little bit. So, the sacrifice question I really like. What's been the biggest obstacle, we'll say, in your professional career? Biggest obstacle in your professional career?
Hmm. I think it's the sheer. No, that's a good question. It's definitely discipline. I think waking up and doing the things that I don't want to do. Oh, this was really apparent in college works. I remember waking up at 5 a.m. having to be at a job site early and being like, I don't want to do this. But it's not one of those things like when you get your first job as a baker at a grocery store. You don't show up and you get a little check mark next to your name. You
No.
don't show up to your job when you're painting somebody's house. You lose a 5-figure deal. It's very different, and I think that's only become more apparent in the other roles I've taken now working in cybersecurity and enterprise environment. If I make a mistake in my job, I could potentially cost the company millions of dollars. So being disciplined and waking up every day, even if it's not your best day, and knowing what it takes to get out of those ruts and those little tiny habits that you need to take to be performing better is really, really important, especially if you're, working from home now in a more online environment, or
Yeah.
even in an office too. You have to do the things that it takes to be disciplined every day, wake up and be your best self.
Wow.
And
So
that's tough,
the discipline was the obstacle personally and professionally.
personally and professionally. Absolutely.
I think it is for a lot of people. It is for a lot of people. Well, I want to say thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to come meet with us. Really appreciate you getting deep. There's two types of people. There's snorkelers. They stay on the surface. They can see the fish, they can see the coral, but they're just on the surface. And then there's scuba divers that go under the water. And it's a little bit more dangerous. If things go wrong, you're in big trouble. You're way down there, but you're in with the fish and you're in with the coral and you're deeper. I spend my time with scuba divers, not snorkelers. I appreciate you becoming a scuba diver on the show today. Maybe if someone's listening, they will get brave and share something with someone else that can help them. Maybe that would be the pay forward to Bobby. But Bobby, I really appreciate you making time and coming on the Edge of Excellence today.
Thanks for having me on, Matt. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.